The Okafor residence was quiet, but the tension inside was loud enough to shatter glass. Amaka sat stiffly on the couch, her arms crossed, her eyes fixed on the marble floor. Across from her, her mother adjusted her wrapper and exhaled dramatically. Chief Okafor, her father, sat with his hands resting on his cane, his expression unreadable but his silence heavy with expectation. Amaka, her mother finally spoke, her tone laced with frustration. "You are 32. 32. What are you waiting for?" Amaka's fingers dug into her palm. "Mama, we've had this conversation 100 times. And we will have it 100 more if you continue like this," Chief Okafor cut in. His deep voice carried the weight of finality. "You are the only one left, Amaka. Do you know how embarrassing it is for a woman of your age to still be unmarried?" Amaka sighed. She had worked hard to get where she was, her own apartment, a thriving career as a project manager in a top firm, financial independence. She had dated, yes, but she refused to settle just because society demanded it. But her parents didn't see it that way. "Papa, I am not refusing to get married, but," Ngozi, her mother, clapped her hands in exasperation. So what is the problem? You are not getting any younger. Do you want to wait until you are 40 before you realize that all the good men are gone?" "I want to marry for love, Mama." Her father scoffed. "Love? Love does not put food on the table. Love does not build a stable home. Love is what foolish girls chase until they wake up one day and realize they are alone." Her mother sat forward, her eyes gleaming with urgency. "Listen, Amaka, your father and I have found a good man for you. A serious man." Amaka's breath hitched. "Who?" "Chuka," her father said. "You remember him, don't you?" She did. Chuka Nwosu was the son of one of her father's business associates. He was smooth-talking and flashy, always boasting about his latest business ventures. Something about him had always seemed off. "He is doing well for himself," her mother continued. "He has multiple businesses, a house in Lekki, and he is interested in you." Amaka frowned. "I barely know him." "You will get to know him," Chief Okafor said. "We have already spoken to his family, and they are in full support." And just like that, her fate was sealed. The wedding was the kind of grand affair that made the society pages. Guests whispered about how lucky Amaka was to have married such a wealthy man. Chuka played the role of the perfect husband, showering Amaka with expensive gifts, promising her a future filled with ease. For a while, she let herself believe that maybe she had worried for nothing. But the cracks began to show early. One night, just 3 months into their marriage, she woke up to find Chuka missing. She checked the time, 2 a.m. He had told her he was going to bed early, yet his side of the bed was empty. Her heart pounded as she reached for her phone. "Where are you?" she texted. The message was delivered, but no reply came. She waited, sleepless, until the first light of dawn when he finally stumbled in, smelling of alcohol and expensive cologne. "Where were you?" she asked. He waved her off. "Business meeting. At 2 a.m. "Amaka, please don't start," he snapped. She swallowed her anger, but the unease settled deep in her bones. Days turned into weeks, and the distance between them grew. Chuka became secretive, constantly on calls he wouldn't explain, leaving the house without a word. And then the money problem started. One evening, as Amaka was sorting through a pile of unopened mail, a letter caught her eye. It was from a bank she didn't recognize. Curious, she opened it, and her blood ran cold. It was a foreclosure notice. Her hands shook as she read the words. Their house, her house, was at risk of being seized. But how? She had used her savings to furnish the place, but the mortgage had always been in Chuka's name. She confronted him that night. Chuka, what is this? She thrust the letter at him. He barely glanced at it. Oh, that. Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. Our house is being taken. Are you in debt? Chuka sighed, rubbing his temples. It's just a small setback. Business has been slow, but I'll fix it. Business has been slow. Amaka's voice rose. But you just bought a new car. You fly to Dubai like it's a weekend getaway. Where is all this money coming from? His jaw tightened. Amaka, just trust me. But she couldn't. Amaka lost her job a month later. Her boss called her into his office, avoiding her gaze. Amaka, your husband has been using our company's name for shady deals. We can't afford this kind of scandal. She sat frozen, disbelief washing over her. Sir, I had nothing to do with that. I know. But our reputation is at stake. We have to let you go. When she returned home that evening, Chuka was gone. So was their remaining money. She called his number repeatedly, but it was switched off. Desperate, she searched for anything, any clue as to where he had gone. That was when she found the documents hidden in his drawer. Fake business deals. False investments. Stolen money. Her husband was a fraud. With nowhere else to go, Amaka returned to her parents' house, her heart heavy with shame. But instead of comfort, she was met with cold stares. Ngozi folded her arms. So you are back. Mama, please. Her father didn't even look at her. We warned you. Amaka stood at the entrance of her parents' house, her bags at her feet, her pride shattered into 1,000 pieces. She had spent years proving her independence, building a life she was proud of, only to return, empty-handed, a failure in their eyes. She swallowed the lump in her throat. Papa, please. I have nowhere else to go. Chief Okafor finally looked at her, his expression unreadable. You made your bed, Amaka. Now, you must lie in it. Ngozi sighed, shaking her head. Marriage is not something you rush into, but you were too stubborn to listen. A part of Amaka wanted to scream, to remind them that it was they who had pressured her into this disaster. But what was the point? She had lost everything, her marriage, her job, her savings. She was too tired to fight. Her mother finally stepped aside. Go inside before the neighbors start talking. Amaka carried her bags in, her head bowed in shame. The days dragged into weeks, and each one felt heavier than the last. Amaka stayed in her old bedroom, the same one she had lived in before moving out years ago. It felt smaller now, suffocating. Every morning, she woke up to the whispers of her mother on the phone, telling relatives about her bad luck. She was too picky, Ngozi would say. See where it got her. Relatives came and went, all with the same look of disappointment. Some were subtle. Others were not. One afternoon, her aunt, Mama Ikena, came to visit. She clicked her tongue as she sat on the sofa, fanning herself dramatically. Amaka, a woman's pride is in her husband's house. You should go and beg Chuka to take you back. Amaka clenched her fist. Auntie, I would rather sleep on the streets than return to him. Mama Ikena sighed. Then what will you do with yourself now? It was a question Amaka had no answer for. As the months passed, she realized just how much Chuka had destroyed. Her reputation was in shambles. Her former employers wanted nothing to do with her because of her association with him. She sent out job applications, but the doors remained closed. Some companies outright rejected her. Others didn't even bother to respond. Her savings were gone, spent on debts she didn't even know existed. Her old friends, the ones she had shared laughter and success with, began to distance themselves. And then came the final humiliation. One evening, As she sat outside, staring at the city skyline, her younger cousin Ada arrived with her husband. They had come to visit her parents, but it didn't take long before the conversation turned to Amaka. "So," Ada said with a polite but condescending smile, "have you found work yet?" Amaka forced a smile. "I'm still looking." Ada nodded sympathetically. "It's just, I was thinking, my husband's company is looking for cleaners. If you need something in the meantime," Amaka's stomach twisted. A cleaner. She had once managed entire projects, sat in meetings with top executives. And now, she was being offered a cleaning job. She swallowed hard. "I'll think about it." That night, as she lay in bed staring at the ceiling, something inside her cracked. This was not the life she had worked for. This was not how her story was supposed to end. The next morning, Amaka got up before dawn. She took a long shower, put on a simple dress, and left the house without a word. She had no plan, no certainty, but she had herself. And that had to be enough. She started small, reaching out to old contacts, avoiding those who only wanted to gossip. She took freelance jobs, worked tirelessly, saving every naira she could. Slowly, opportunities trickled in. A year later, she had managed to rent a small apartment. It wasn't the luxurious life she had before, but it was hers. She no longer lived under her parents' roof, no longer heard their whispers of disappointment. Her biggest lesson: she would never let society rush her into anything again. And as she stood by the window of her new home, watching the city lights flicker, she made a silent vow she would rise again. This time, on her own terms.